Hi, everyone. So today I'm building off of the last back to basics experience that we had here on LitBlock, where I focused on read aloud and specifically an interactive read aloud. And so today, remember, back to basics is all about like simplifying our instruction so that we can be the strongest teachers that we can be, while also alleviating some of the complexity and the layers of difficulty and decision making that we all go through every day. So if you didn't get a chance to see or listen to the reading, setting up for an interactive read aloud, highly recommend you scroll down on the page where you can find it. We plan to read aloud using this book, Woof, The Truth About Dogs by Annette Whipple. Today's focus is going to be around mentor texts. Now, there are many different definitions of mentor texts, and it's a word that a lot of us use all the time. Basically, a mentor text is a teaching tool that we can go back to time and time again to build know-how and knowledge around literacy and literacy learning and other things too. Today, we're going to stick with just to really staying in the wheelhouse of literacy, but a little nod to some of the other subject areas. So I just wanted to first talk to you a little bit about how to choose a mentor text, what to do to kind of make it a mentor text for students, and then the myriad of ways that you could use one single mentor text for many, many different purposes. I just want to give a little shout out to my friend Pam Kutrakis, who has taught me so much about this, and I'm inspired by her. So one of the greatest things that we can do is take a text that we've read aloud and used in a read aloud and turn it into a mentor text, which means that that mentor text is going to get lots and lots and lots of attention. When we choose this mentor text, there's a couple of things to think about. First, we want the text to be filled with possibilities, that it is rich, it's engaging. There's something about it that draws us to that text. Now, it can really be anything. I mean, mentor text can be a poem, can be an article, can be a big book, can be a page of a book, can be a decodable text, it can be a piece of a novel. I mean, the sky's the limit, but just pick something that you can see many possibilities in. And it's probably something that you really like, because it's a bit like a commitment in, say, a relationship that you want to be long-term. That relationship is one where there's enough there and that you really just like it. So you're going to stick with it for a while. So those are some tips on picking a mentor text. Second thing I wanted to talk to you about is just being able to make this mentor text a mentor text. So I used to think that I needed a different mentor text for every lesson that I was teaching. And I realized after a while that that wasn't having the effect that I thought it was going to have. So we actually need a few beloved, well-read texts to be able to use that will really be able to build mileage in the usage of these mentor texts. So the thing that I like to do before actually really using it for instruction is to have at least the parts that we're going to use read aloud a few times, that the text becomes really familiar to students and to us, because we're going to basically narrow down different skills, experiences, and learning opportunities in kind of tiny pockets and going back into the text over and over again. And the best way to be able to do that is for students who have already made meaning out of it. They already know it well. So now we can take on different approaches and different instructional opportunities with the mentor text. So contrary to maybe my belief system back 15 years ago, that I would choose a different fresh text for every time I was teaching something. We actually want to pick something that we have read and possibly reread or zoomed into certain parts and read again. So that's the reason I'm choosing the same book that I used for Read Aloud. It's a perfect segue to use the text that we're using for Read Aloud to then become a mentor text. So here are a couple of things, and just a few, that you can do when it comes to using a mentor text, especially one that is well-loved. One of the things that you can do is you can begin with perhaps some reading comprehension work. So something like this, we might be reading across pages and noticing ways that we connect our learning across the sections. So maybe it's a little bit of reading comprehension work. You can do plenty of it, and you can choose as many different reading comprehension experiences as you'd like. But that's just one example with this text, that we might read across pages and notice how we're holding the information and connecting that information that we're learning with the old or the former pages, earlier pages in the book. Something else you might want to do is zoom in and find a word that you most want to study, like a vocabulary word. I found one here on this page. I think the word reveal is a wonderful word for us to dig into. What we like to do with those is take them from the text, maybe read that little section where it was found, define the word, and then build conversation around using that word and revisit the word often. I love to, what's the word? I love to find vocabulary words where they're planted, like harvest them where they're planted. It helps us build meaning. Then what we might also do is a different side of the coin of word study. We might find a word that matches some of the patterns or parts of what we're studying in phonics, and pull that word out, examine it, notice the connection it's making to current words or patterns that we're studying, and taking the time to dig into and generate more around word learning or phonics learning. Another great thing to do with a mentor text is knowledge building. We know that vocabulary and background knowledge are two of the very important things that help kids succeed in reading. And so when you choose your mentor text, it might be intentionally around a particular topic that you'd like to build knowledge around. So it might be in a topic, and it might be building knowledge around a particular genre. So genre knowledge is really helpful both for the skills we use when we read and also the skills we use when we write. So a natural segue is looking back into this text and noticing what this author did when writing informational text, what this author included that we might also include. And we can look back at that, name it, and then perhaps even use that in our own writing as a springboard into perhaps revision and elaboration. Another point, oh my gosh, I can keep going here. Yes, same text, all of these possibilities. I might zoom in on a particular sentence and notice how that sentence is constructed. I might look at how a couple of sentences come together. So here we are working with grammar. So taking some time zooming into one part, studying how the author used sentences and words. Like this paragraph right here is a really great example of different types of punctuation that can be used within sentences. So grammar and conventions. Another thing that's really fantastic with mentor texts is the opportunity for students to be able to talk based on the text. So we know our speaking and listening standards are sometimes the ones that are like, we know they're there and we know we want to address them. And we know that talking, Jeff Swears really tells us a lot about this, that talking is something that helps us become more skilled, but we also become more skilled talkers or speakers and listeners through the act of conversation. So we can build conversation around the mentor text that we're studying. And then this is a nod into some other subject areas. Let's imagine the questions or the wonderings that we have after reading a portion of the mentor text that can then build toward inquiry projects. And so we might have a question or questions that we generate together in the classroom. We might pick one or two of those questions to spark something bigger in, say, a research or an inquiry project. So I know that I just gave you a whole lot of possibilities of what can be done with a mentor text, but let me just recap for a second so that you can take that and then perhaps use those different parts and pieces I just mentioned as lenses when you go ahead and choose your mentor text. So remember, we want to choose a rich text, one that we can see there will be lots of possibilities in and that we really like. We want to read that text a few times, and then we will zoom in on it and use it for different purposes. And a few of the purposes that I shared with you, I've jotted down over here just to make sure that I can recap them all. We might go in for some reading comprehension work. We might go in for some vocabulary, thinking of maybe tier 2 or academic vocabulary words that we really want to highlight because we know they'll show up in other places. We might use it to reinforce or even kickstart some phonics work. We can think about some writing as well. Like, what did this author do that we could also do? Study that author's craft and then to take that craft into our own writing. It might be around knowledge building in a particular topic so that anything else that's read within that topic, there's a base that we've all experienced. We might also study grammar, certain parts of how that author constructed and used words to create sentences. We might study syntax. We might study conventions like the use of punctuation. We might also use the same text to begin and to nourish the talking that's happening in the classroom. We might also use it to spark wonderings that might lead us into other research and inquiry projects. And I just also want to say, I hope what I'm sharing with you is simply an inspiration for you to look at your own texts, the ones that you've chosen, and say, what are the many opportunities that are in this text that will be opportunities for my students to learn something new, but within those categories and beyond. All right, so enjoy those mentor texts. I hope this was helpful for you. And we will continue with our Back to Basics once a month here on LitBlock. I'll see you next time.